My name is Jordan O'Grably, and I work with the Lavetine Cultural Center. We are very pleased and proud tonight to be co-sponsoring the evening with Zambiel Art. And I'm very grateful to Fatima Khan for asking the Lavetine Cultural Center to work with her and Zambiel Art to bring this lecture, Pakistan, Anatomy of a Relationship, to the Mark Taper Auditorium. We're also extremely grateful to Russell Powell here with the LA Public Library and the Departments of History and Genealogy who've made tonight possible. And as well, we'd like to thank the Consulate of Pakistan in Los Angeles and Amtrend Corporation that helped us make this evening work. And a special welcome to Consul General from Pakistan, Rifat Masood.
We're going to ask Jabbar Saab to unravel and explain some of this, because it is not only puzzling and disturbing to people in the United States, it's very much so to people in Pakistan, and the complexities and intricacies and the games that are involved here really need to be discussed from different perspectives so that people have some idea of what the future holds. In this book, Jabbar Saab covers the origins of Pakistan and gives a quick history of it from 1947 to present times. He also talks about some of the deep problems of establishing nation-states, particularly those that are founded on the basis of religion, the confusion that causes, and at the end, he envisions a more liberal, progressive Pakistan and gives his opinions there. So this is somebody who has seen all of this firsthand. And I think we need perspectives like his, again, to better understand the sort of totality of it and what are other ways forward.
Doubtless, it is a relationship that started out with great expectations. But before one does that, I think I owe it to my country and to history, more importantly, perhaps, that phrase, which is so common, that Pakistan was carved out of India, needs to be clarified, if not challenged. Because in my humble reading of history, before August 1947, there was no such thing as a singular political entity called India. It was comprised of over 550 princely states. One of them was as large as France, which is Hyderabad, Deccan. I was privileged to be the son of a father who served in the Nizam's government. Kashmir was another territory, a kingdom. Hyderabad, incidentally, had its own currency, its own railways, its own flag, its own administration. So what happened in August 47 was the simultaneous creation of two new entities, which came into existence with great disadvantages for Pakistan. But the fact is that two new political entities were created in 47. So we did not take anything out of a mythical, non-existent India. And having said that, I'd just like to say that the evidence shows that even before Ike, or President Eisenhower, a remarkable man who warned so early about the military-industrial complex in the US, despite himself being a military man, we find that within two and a half months or less of Pakistan's creation, the first emissary from Pakistan arrives hot foot in Washington, D.C., Mir Laiq Ali, actually from Hyderabad, Deccan. And he presents a request to the U.S. government for a very modest sum of only $2 billion, which by today's estimate would be at least 200 billion, or let us settle for $20 billion. There is this new young, awkward, crazy country asking for $2 billion. And they say, why do we want it? The first reason is defense. And the second reason is economic cooperation and developmental needs. So, of course, the Americans are wise enough to turn down this upstart country and say, certainly not, we don't have $2 billion to give you. But the record shows that starting with 20th March 1949, a memorandum by the Joint Chiefs of Staff says Pakistan is an extremely relevant strategic country for the United States. And then a number of statements leading up to the fact that on the 15th of December 1950, Pakistan becomes the first country of South Asia to sign a mutual defense assistance agreement with the United States. And then there are pronouncements by President Truman. Then the State Department policy statement issued in 1950 says that because Pakistan does not suffer from the virulent anti-Westernism and deep-rooted neutrality of India, Pakistan should be requested to cooperate to offer military bases in the Indian Ocean. So we start with this extremely positive attitude of the United States towards the potential of Pakistan. Of course, from a US perspective, looking at it from the US's attitude to the threat from the Soviet Union. Up to 9/11, there had been this freeze on aid. Now suddenly our virtues are discovered post 9/11, and military aid shoots up almost overnight from 0 to 1.7 billion. From the US, 1.3, from the Coalition Support Fund, about 1.7 billion. So in the space of 8 or 9 years, suddenly we are given this. And what is it for? Because tens of thousands of our troops, our logistics are all involved in supporting the US presence in Afghanistan. 70% of all supplies go through Pakistan at a very high price. I mean, there's tremendous resentment. Look at the price we've paid. 31,000 Pakistani lives either killed or lost. One country. And take the military scorecard. It's a terrible thing to say scorecard. One country, Pakistan, has lost more soldiers and senior officers than 43 countries which are currently fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan. They've lost about 2,700 or 8. We've lost 3,100. So when we know this is the kind of price we are paying, and then it is said there's no oversight, it is like charging Pakistan with fraud, and that is not what we are. We are very decent people, and we don't hate America, despite all this virulent talk about anti-Americanism and 60% people. Be rest assured, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola is thrust down the throats of young children in Pakistan morning, noon and night. We've got Hollywood movies coming out of our ears and all the television channels. We've got Citibank flourishing. We've got Procter & Gamble and other American corporations making windfall profits. No one goes and burns a McDonald's or a Kentucky Fried Chicken. They're all serving hamburgers all the time. Our poor little traditional food outlets are suffering thanks to our welcoming attitude to America. So this anti-Americanism myth is another myth. I tell you, the people of Pakistan respect America. It's a very dynamic, creative country. It is indispensable for world peace. But we are very critical of US governmental policy on Afghanistan, Iraq, Kashmir, Palestine, what have you. And it's just a question of how we come to better understand each other.
What do you propose should be the new ways of doing things, both by countries like Pakistan and by the US?
Just a correction. For the record, not that it is anything to be proud, literacy level is at 54% to 60% roughly, which is virtually, it is very bad. It should be 9. No, I know the definition of literacy, but there is, I mean, without taking away from the importance of print literacy, there is a widespread audio literacy and visual literacy, which is a phenomenon of electronic media, the byproduct of media. You will find villagers who are not skilled with cell phones able to master it even though they can't read and write. They have a kind of phonetic literacy which makes them very functional and productive. But that's no substitute for print literacy. It is increasing, but it is not what it should be. Be grossly increasing our allocation to education, but perhaps more importantly, improving the quality and the content of education, the curriculum, which is often fossilized, the teaching, the duty of teachers, which is very, very deficient. Teacher training has to be a major national priority. And these are the fundamental issues that are challenging Pakistani society today. There is a tremendous thirst in the people of Pakistan for education. They spend on education any amount that asked of them. So that's a very positive sign. And there is today a straight-up surge in the higher education and in the primary education segment. Our crisis area is colleges and the metric level students, those grossly deficient, especially for girls. Not enough middle schools, not enough high schools. So all we need to do is to devote more resources, improve the quality of the, sustain it over the next 20 to 30 years.
Where is this coming from? Because on the other side, on the side of the so-called quote-unquote fundamentalists, you have the younger crowd. But the technocrats, people like myself who came here, who studied and so on, who don't have these hang-ups, we are, where do we go back?
Thank you for your comment. It's a full comment. However, I'm pleased to disagree with it. Only because at the ripe age of 2 when Pakistan was born, so don't make me or give me credit for creating the country. I have my virtue up with Pakistan, and I have certainly contributed my share to the problems of Pakistan. It's probably solutions. But with regard to whether it's a generational issue, I have thought about this, and sometimes young people can also be subject to inheriting some of the biases and prejudices of their elders. Youth is not necessarily the epitome of innocence and freshness. I'm deeply respectful of leaders who at young age of 70, have made some of the most radical transformations of history. It is Deng Xiaoping of China, who comes to power at the age of tender age 8 and decides to redirect China by 180 degrees. He makes China youthful, energetic, takes up all the possible ideas of capitalism, socialism, and melds them into a new China. Another example may not be America's favorite, but he said about decisive change, Ayatollah Khomeini. Another person who is, as Ayatollah Khomeini's name is in the States, Charles de Gaulle. Our own country's Muhammad Ali Jinnah was more youthful and progressive than many others who used to hang around at that time. If he hadn't thought of Pakistan, we wouldn't have this blessing today. So, friend, while I remain young, all women are under 30, all men are under 40. So I'm just touching 32 just now. And I hope that the young generation of Pakistan and in India can recognize and not discard history, to understand history and at the same future. But don't disregard the role that the other generation has played. It's not all been destructive and negative. They've worked under enormous disadvantages and managed to preserve what is left of Pakistan and big after 71.